Sweet.
So there.
Trying to stab me.
I swear I checked this before everybody showed up.
Sorry.
I don't think so. She's not wanting to read my.
How'd your presentation go?
Oh, Lord, we gotta
Elsewhere, I saw, I can't remember where now.
Chicago. It was long, but I was looking for actually where I needed to cut out. So I was like, what of this mess do you guys not want? So. Yeah. So it was- it's-
Were they nice about
She's
it,
got
or
a
they
map,
were like the
Chris. I
whole
don't know
thing?
what to do.
They were nice about it. They actually like.
I
someone's got a map.
Read it about, got it counted, yeah. Just cut the whole deal.
I definitely, yeah. So, like,
Yours is just a Chrome, isn't it, Dave?
Was it remote? Yeah.
Your laptop's a Chrome, right? Chrome.
How many Microsoft remote ones?
Okay, sorry about that. I've had this Mac for like a couple of weeks and I am not a
whole
Mac person.
different. Whole different.
I know.
I am now.
So.
Hello. I have just started this company. I was until recently an adjunct professor at CSU, which is why I'm good friends with Jenny. I have been doing this kind of on the side over the last 15-ish years, but because I had a steady paycheck, I didn't really care about lead generation. I would just kind of get ad hoc projects through friends who were web devs or occasional friends of mine who were like, I need you to just do this one thing for me. And that was fine because it was, extra money, but now it's like the money. And I am a little stuck. So what I need your help with today, hopefully. Waiting for it to catch up. I have advanced my screen. Did you like that I included a QR code after? last
Yes,
time?
I saw that.
Have to put finish it
My phone
space bar.
yeah.
This is like uncomfortably like teaching again. I'm not gonna do it.
There we
Okay,
You're retired.
I am
Whoa.
retired.
Ruh-roh.
Oh, no.
You know what? I'm not gonna be a Mac person for long at this rate. Okay, what I need your help with. I am having some trouble as I am starting to network more and actively search for new clients, kind of distilling what I do. I say content editing and I get a lot of just like totally blank face. And I have my sort of like one sentence elevator pitch description of what I do, which is that I'm a content editor working with a variety of nonfiction kinds of text, whatever you need to work with. And the people are like, so copy editor or a writer, and both of those are closely related, but they're not exactly what I do. So I'm trying to kind of distill that. I'm going to walk through a little bit what I do and don't do to kind of give you a better idea to maybe help me. And then this, on Natalie's recommendation, I include, again, all right, you know what? We're just gonna deal with my notes being on the screen because that seems to be working better. Do this. Okay. On Natalie's recommendation, I included all the sort of like workshopping versions I have in various places on my current materials. My plan, of course, is to homogenize those and make them consistent, but I'm kind of trying out some different things right now. So that first one in the top left is the last chunk of text on my landing page for my website. So this is kind of at the bottom after a little bit of description. And then the picture underneath is just to show you kind of what that looks like on my website. But I knew that was going to be too small to read. So there's the full text. And then the top right is my current business card, which has a tagline I kind of like, but it doesn't tell people a whole lot about what I do. So together, let's make something polished is what I have right now. And then the last one there is from my pricing page. So I kind of break down some different service levels and then try to outline different versions of projects I've done and offer that as sort of this is the thorough line to all of that. I can't just hit next anymore.
Hit present in the top right, is that?
See, I am actually gonna make this one bigger again because it's a little text heavy. So a content editor is not a copy editor. It's a bit more macro level. I think my most typical networking conversation is, so what do you do? I'm a content editor. So you're a copy editor. No. Instead, it's more macro level. And usually earlier in the process, I'm helping with sort of larger scale organization, larger scale rhetorical concerns. To borrow from my academic background, I'm thinking about your target audience. I'm thinking about your argument goals and how those are aligned, and I'm helping you get there. I can also then provide copy editing, but that's a separate kind of service. And I generally recommend to clients that they find another reader, just because I will have been looking at the text for long enough at that point that I'm probably not going to catch every little detail. I'm also not a marketer. Like, it's not very typical for me to sit down with a client and do idea generation. That's not really my wheelhouse. I'm more the person that, like, the client has an idea, they have no idea how to make it happen, and so they come to me. And then we do it together and then send it to a final reader and then put it out. And then the ghostwriter, I think, is the other one I'm getting more commonly lately. I think because I have helped a lot with some keynotes and ebooks over my career of doing this. So people then think I just write for people. Not really. Again, like, I'm never just sitting in front of a blank screen with the goal and generating a text, right? I'm taking a text that someone has generated and polishing it, making it better. Okay, we're gonna hack the system here. All right. So what I am as a content editor is a bit of a coach. This draws very heavily on all of my years of teaching. I'm doing very similar kinds of support for my clients that I used to do for my students. Helping them deal with their writing anxiety is probably my like the biggest time suck for me. It's just like, it's okay. You can be as anxious as you want. We just got to make this happen, and I will make it better. So that's a big part of my role. I'm also a problem solver. Like, someone might come to me totally confident that they can write and just be stuck on a particular text with a particular tone that they need some help with. Jenny is one of my clients. That was a dig right at her. And then also I'm kind of a play actor. So like I said, thinking about target audience and how those things are aligned requires me to kind of get in that headspace. I am having a little bit of trouble defining a clear niche for myself because I have worked with so many different kinds of people. So this is kind of the common characteristics of my clients. I know it is not very specific. I'm happy to take some advice if you think you know an area that could really use my services. I wanted to bring you a few use cases to kind of show my range and also why I am struggling. It's a lot. I'm gonna go a little faster because I'm running out of time after all the tech stuff. I do on my website, 3 pages in, have me, because I do think as a content editor, you're hiring me as much as you're hiring my work. Like, we need to have a good working relationship. You need to like the fact that I'm a little snarky and blunt, because that is part of the value that I offer, is just telling you how it is and not dancing around it too much. I have been doing this a long time though, not just my 15 years of teaching on the side. Okay, so that brings me back to my asks. I could really use some different language from sort of outside my perspective about what content editing does for people, so that I can like maybe convey that a little more succinctly than my 7 minutes I just took.
All right, anyone want to get us started?
I have a question. In the journey of somebody that's doing web and branding and graphic design, and where do you fit in their world? Like, you know, if I'm coming through that, I'm working with somebody on branding, and then I'm working with somebody else's website. Where will you begin to fit into my picture and my marketing? And
I have worked with web devs and marketers in the past, and typically I come along once the campaign is already fairly well set, like they have a good idea, they've been working on materials. Usually they'll reach out to me if I think that the best way to describe it is like they were really excited and on track, and then all of a sudden they realize they are not, and they're stuck and they don't know how to get out of whatever stuck they are. And then that's where I come in. So I guess the short answer is mid-stage, like well before it goes up, but also well after the initial planning stage.
so I have my brand, I kind of know my target, maybe got a website ready, framework ready to go, and I need that polish. that's where you come in as the polish.
Chris and then John.
So my focus is branding. That's what I do. To me, when I hear you talk here, I'm thinking about branding. Like, to me, when I hear what you're doing, I'm thinking about, you come in and help make sure that their written communications are in line with the voice of their brand. So you're really supporting the branding, in my mind.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't-
you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't use that language myself, but maybe I should.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking too, because the other thing I was thinking, well, okay, since you're not a brand or you're not a ghostwriter, I'm like, are we just doing SOPs or something like that?
I mean, this
You
is part of
said,
my
when you-
struggle is I could do anything, like
Right.
these are all projects.
you know,
we
but I
do.
mean, that's, so and that's why I went that from one end to the other, is like, where do you want to be at?
Yeah. Back in the day, I used to use things like, aligning your corporate voice along all points of communication kind of idea,
Yeah.
which is a little bit market speak, but.
Yeah, Charles.
Yeah, so I worked as a direct marketing fundraiser for a long time. And our we had copywriters for our direct mail copy. And they're sort of like the copywriter old school. There's like reams of books about it. But we hired somebody who is like essentially just like a senior writer was sort of the title he used, that worked with our executive director because she was a writer herself. And so most people just kind of got batted away from like a quality perspective. So I'm just curious, like the thought of like editor, I think implies a certain like later stage of the work, which so I'm curious, like how would you rank these projects like from a hierarchy? Like if you could choose, what two would you prefer, or one?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've been doing a lot of thinking about that lately and I don't have a good answer, because part of what I like about what I do is that I am doing something different all the time. I do think this is part of, so I think you hit it though. This is part of my problem is that when most people hear editing, they are hearing copy editing, like the last stage, but what I'm doing is developmental editing.
Yeah, I think of content strategist is sort of the role-ish that like when I've hired an agency, that's been a role that like they mark out like, here's your year, or here's your message hierarchy, like your tagline and the 3 supporting pillars. So it sounds like you have that sort of depth to.
The one thing I would tell you from my experience is go out there and do everything. I was like, oh, I help women in transition. And then I got a whole bunch of women who were like, I'm thinking about getting divorced. And I was like, not that.
Not what
Not
I'm
that transition. Yeah, that's not what I want to do. So I think like when you get started, it's sort of that iterative process of like, I'm open to anything. And then you be like, accept that. So, Dane.
I would actually suggest picking one thing that you're talking about in marketing and talk about it as a story. If you're targeting the less than 5 people and you're talking to entrepreneurs now, you could have led with, do you have dozens of blog posts just sitting in draft and all these ideas sitting in OneNote that you've done nothing with? Like, yeah. I will hire you. So instead of saying you do everything, and instead of trying to educate your potential clients, just give one example of the work you've done and let them be the ones to say, oh, could you also do this?
Okay.
Because even after you focus, people will still ask you to go beyond that. But it makes it easier to start that conversation.
I would say the title, like getting rid of the title. Because if you're having to explain it, it's not useful.
Yeah, just said what I was gonna say, or maybe like reformatting that or restructuring it. The other thing I would say is, if you want to keep that, if that's something you want to try to anchor, or maybe even regardless of it, like try to draw a parallel to something that people are familiar with. If you're trying to give people an explanation, like use imagery, like you're not the person swinging the hammer, driving a nail and building a house, right? You're the general contractor that's figuring out what goes where, or what the order is. Like
I've told people I'm like a sous chef.
yeah, they're
The
exactly.
sous chef of writing.
like-
But it really, like, giving some sort of parallel, and there's a lot of people that have never worked in a kitchen, have no friggin' idea what a sous chef is, so.
I've seen a lot of movies.
Sounds like you're gonna get you in the kitchen notes.
Yeah.
I just watch a lot of food. too.
But that's,
Mise en place.
Yeah.
that's why I would personally try to like draw some sort of parallel for people to understand the value and the distinct value versus someone that's doing like copy editing is really down in nuts and bolts, making sure your punctuation, your sentence structure, like things like that are good. It's not like that next step up of, does this fit here and does this make sense in this order? And that's somehow like create imagery for people to understand that.
Relax, that's why. I'm also curious, given that you want to be the sous chef, how you chose like the under 5 size.
I think it's a reflection of who I've worked in the past partially, but it's also a reflection of my desire to have like an ongoing relationship with my clients. I don't want to be the person they hire for the one project and then I never see them again, because that's not the best use of my talents and skills to do that. It's the longer view that I give people. So,
Content strategist.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, because I come from the B2B world where we're like a 60-person company, and we had someone on staff who was an incredible writer, and then they left, and we kind of lost that like big picture, like what are we trying to do?
right. Which
And we
is
could
kind of-
never afford to hire that person. So like you could kind of be like a managing editor.
And that's why I wasn't going to the big ones, was I was like, I don't want to just be someone's in-house editor necessarily.
Well, I think that's probably gonna be the tension for you. It's like, if it makes sense, then they're like, wait, we want you. I mean, because content is king, even more so nowadays.
I mean, that's also a point of differentiation for you. Like if your goal is to help people in small companies develop their voice over time and their skill set over time, like that's, to me, that's a much more interesting sales proposition and position than, hey, I can help you fix these blog posts or, like your overall content strategy. If you're helping me grow my business by helping me become a more effective content creator and communicator, I think that's an interesting business proposition.
Couple of thoughts on this. One, when you're talking about it, you need to talk about the problem that you solve more than the title. So like I help small businesses save time, because how many freaking hours do we non-writers spend trying to write one stupid blog post? That's how I feel about that.
Really feel.
Yeah,
27
exactly.
minutes?
Yeah, a little more than 27 minutes.
That's the breakthrough to actually put down the first sentence.
Yes, thank you.
So like I help whoever it is save time by whatever. The other thought that I have is, being in this world, I see a lot of programs that teach me how to make all my content for a year in a day. You could partner with somebody like that who's teaching that and then be like, okay, so you got all your ideas down and now I can help you polish them.
She doesn't like it.
I know, no,
Side.
I was just thinking about something I said last week or the week before about, I basically do what Jenny does, but I do it for people.
Yeah.
So teaching them how to do it. That's why I was
Yes.
looking at her. Like,
Those were daggers at Jenny. Okay, Bill, bring us home.
Yeah, so my comment is, I think I see these problems, in a different way, like when I work with people on startup pitches, it's kind of the same problem. And from my perspective, the problem is people know too much. They're experts here, and they're gonna talk to someone who knows nothing about that.
Yep.
And they have real trouble in
Trying to
building that,
That bridge.
how do they do that? So it's a strategizing thing, it's an organizing thing. It's tough to do in an elevator pitch.
Yeah, I'm great at the mid-size pitch, like I got 2 minutes, I can convince people to hire me, but like the super quick networking one sentence is where I'm drowning.
Because you don't have a good title.
Yeah.
I mean, you do, but it's an internal, like people
Yeah.
who know
Yes.
what this is.
Yeah. that's
All
what I'm
right.
thinking.
Well, thank you so much for giving your first pitch, like 3 weeks into coming.
Right, and one of those weeks was a panel, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
You did your QR code for us again? I'm sorry.
Yes, I do.
Or what was it?
She does, because she learned about QR codes in one of her 2 times of being here.
Who was that person?
I don't think he's gonna grab it.
Can you make it bigger? It didn't grab from here.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to make your
Y'all can
QR
walk
card
up this.
code big enough for people to get it. That's the next one.
There we go. Thank you.
Too big. I made it too big.
There you go.
Next time I'll know my machine better and we won't have so many typos.
All right, go ahead and grab your second cup of coffee.
It's like, having-
I know.
And I like the conversations.
A unique class.
I was trying really hard. to-
I did, that was kind of a.
Yeah. Sam. I'm all about the.
Yeah.
Come on.
Just start getting an outline.
It always starts with who you talk
Right? And then-
So I was trying so hard not to look at her.
Oh, boy.
What's the problem they're
Like
facing?
yesterday, there was none.
I mean, it could, I would be
I was
bored to
excited.
tears.
Yes, you would.
I don't want to do it.
I think it's fun.
I think about things like.
Thank you.
I don't know, it's because there's a lot of.
Like they hear when they sign you.
Because they kind of just
Right,
like spit
Dana's
it out.
already
without
ready to
thinking.
rock and roll.
Yeah, well, we'll pick it up. That's the point, right? It's a meeting.
Sleep is good.
Right.
Knocked out.
It was nonchalant.
You know what? I actually have that on one of my.
Jenny waits, she waits until I tell her to sit down. It's funny, like, I think I need to do 30 seconds to be like, okay, sit down.
Write that on the back. You need to.
I'm glad you didn't push my achiever so early.
Yay. Grab the coach and stuff.
My second time here. I'm not particularly bored.
Had to get up. Two seconds.
outside.
Same thing.
We've been talking about something.
It was Scott Samuel.
Scott
From
who?
Innocent Weird All the
Oh,
Time.
really?
Yeah.
Aging.
My parents, that's my boring car.
Oh, yes.
Except that-
It wasn't Scott. No, it was Jared.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, me and Darren are.
Well, I mean, that's not useful, you know?
No, it's just.
Yeah.
It was like, I was in the same place. It's 2 different people. So like in my mind.
Those are the.
Okay,
expensive
sit down,
cars.
please. So that day. Business.
But I'm gonna give you a really nice one now.
All right, we have our very own Tim Johnson. Give it up. I know you got free applause. Today is presenting his company Rev Zero. And his fun fact is that when he was in Oslo, Norway, he skipped a client meeting. He was the client, but still he skipped a meeting all across the world so that he could go to a Bob Dylan concert.
It was totally worth it.
Skip it.
Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan.
Yeah, we were scheduled for dinner. I mean, we spent all day in a meeting, but we were scheduled for dinner and he was playing adjacent to my hotel. And I was like, sorry, guys. Thank God.
So I let them go. I gotta take this.
Hopefully they just.
No.
They could have got tickets if they wanted to.
That would have been really nice. I should have done
Yeah.
that. Yeah, so today I'm talking about my business Rev Zero, where I do leadership coaching for engineers turned managers. This is a presentation that I might give to potential clients. So after I got the lead, I'm now meeting them for the first time. These are the directors of HR, the COOs of a technical organization. So I'd like you to look at it from that perspective. And my ask for you is, in this presentation, is the value obvious? And is my presentation compelling? Now, throughout dozens of industries and hundreds of companies, you are more likely to find engineers at the top of the org chart than you are an MBA. They just get promoted through all levels. This is at the C-suite, middle management, director levels, all the way down. And there's some very good reasons for that. And in fact, if you haven't worked in a technology-focused industry or company before, you may be thinking that's a pretty bad idea. But I believe that engineers belong in leadership roles. There. And the reason for this is because of their competence breeds confidence. And the main stakeholders that are most interested in having technical experts as leaders are the people who work for them. Engineers want to work for other engineers. Customers want to buy from technically competent people. And investors want to invest in businesses whose founders know what they're doing. If you're buying a thruster for a lunar lander, you're going to want a COO who knows the technology and knows how it integrates with your system. But to lead well, I also know that engineers require new skills to do that. And the APA, the American Psychological Association, actually found that it's quicker and better to train technical experts in leadership than it is to try to train MBAs in technical skills. And so while businesses are going to see a higher return on their investment for leadership development of technical experts, you'd be surprised how few actually do it. In other industries, they spend a ton of money on leadership development, but across the board, technical industries lag behind. And so you have technical leaders at all levels who have unclear career paths, they lack development plans, they're over-reliant on internal resources, they don't bring in the external experts who can help them, and they have less support from their own management when it comes to their leadership development. So this is from a massive cross-industry survey from Deloitte, where technical industries just lag behind. So what I do is I come in and I work one-on-one with technical leaders to make these brilliant people great leaders. My background, Cliff Notes, I was an engineer once. I did it for 10 years. I was a project manager and I was an executive at a startup engineering firm of about 30 people. And now I coach. And I have over 150 hours of coaching technical experts from IT managers to chief technology officers. And I've also had bad bosses, and sometimes I've been a bad boss. And throughout my experience, I've learned that no one wants to be a bad boss. They just don't get the chance to learn how to be a good one. And what I've found from engineers is they tend to approach leadership the same way they've approached every other problem in their career, which is they retreat to the books. They retreat and they try to figure it out on their own. They watch blog posts, they read books, and they copy and paste. And they're used to working on problems that have solutions to now working people problems without solutions. Through the coaching, the value that has been conveyed to me of how this has helped them, it saves the business and the manager's time. It increases productivity not only of the individual manager, they're now managing instead of working on their individual contributor stuff. It increases the productivity of their team. It prepares them to be future leaders of the business. If you're thinking about the leadership pipeline and the succession planning, having managers ready to step into those higher roles is critical. It creates strategic alignment from the vision of the CEO to the strategy of the directors to the execution of the frontline supervisors. And it gives them focus, helps them focus on what's next, what's the right thing. How I do that, I have 3 programs. First is the Rev Zero Manager Fundamentals course. This is a 12-week kickstart, one-on-one coaching over 12 weeks, 3 months, and it costs $7,200. This is for people who've gone from being the mechanical engineer to now leading a team of mechanical engineers. Give them that fundamental education of management. Next here is the leadership coaching for technical leaders. This would be anywhere, this is the custom coaching for a director to a chief technology officer. Over 6 months, we do one-on-one coaching, and that starts at $10,400 based on the assessments that we pull in and their level in the organization. And the third tier is the leadership team coaching. This is where I take a director and level person and all the managers that report to them. They each get one-on-one coaching, and then each month we bring the whole group together. That way they're all speaking the same language. They're all working towards the same strategic objectives, and they're learning together, which is much more powerful to the business. And that starts at $54,000, depending on the assessments we pull in and the number of participants. And I do this because I care. I love this work. And I do this because I want to see no more bad bosses. I want to help those people who want to be good at this new role succeed. So he asked for you. Is the value obvious? Is my presentation compelling? How can I use this going into those sales meetings?
5:56:65.
What's your feeling? So we're talking about like HRs and COOs, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what is your sense of sort of the challenge that's, or the pain that's brought them to you, to your pitch? And how does that show up? Because I feel like it was slightly, the one page sort of felt like the engineer's version of what might be the pain, which is great, but the HR person and the COO might be like, well, that's cushy for my people. Okay, whatever, but I want to solve something more
Hard
tangible.
There's a host of pain points that come into play. One is turnover. People leave bad bosses and you promote an engineer into a management role and they just keep doing their old job. Pretty soon people on their team start leaving. So for HR, and then for HR, especially at the mid-market where I'm working, they don't have the capacity in-house to develop training.
Sharon and then John.
So that actually led really nicely into what I was thinking, which is that you start to tell your story. Like, I was a bad boss, I was an engineer, but you lose the middle bit. So you're describing a common solution that other people have to these problems, but you don't kind of talk through yours. And I think since you're a coach and you're like selling your experience as much as anything, that like that middle part is what would tie the story together and maybe answer that question, right? The shift from your own engineer perspective to then being an effective leader.
Thanks.
Some of the things I saw was, maybe cut out about a couple minutes on the front end of the engineering and put in more of what you can do for the CEO. What makes a good boss? What makes a bad boss? Instead of just glossing it, throw some examples there. And then we had the testimonials, put actual name, put initials there, company. This validates it more.
Ben and then DeLong.
I want to build off your first answer is something that was nowhere in the presentation. And to me, that's a critical portion of your value proposition. And the fact that you're making people better managers, but the problem that you're solving, especially if you're talking to HR and CEOs, whoever's like really responsible for the personnel in the organization, the problem you're solving is churn. Churn is an incredibly expensive problem for organizations, especially technical organizations who have high salary comps, who potentially pay relocation, pay signing bonuses. Like, what's the value proposition for them if you avoid a single employee turning over? Like that, to me, that's like, that has to be in there. But you have to ask that question of like, if I save you from losing one employee to a bad manager, what's that worth to you? And then scale it from there, because like one bad manager may cost you, half a dozen employees, like whatever it ends up being.
Oh yeah.
I think you need to make that a core tenet, because at least your value prop slide to me was very ambiguous. It was very like, these are all words that are nice and feel good and things, but if you're asking me to take out my checkbook, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
So I'd like to see that incorporated. The other thing I'd say, suggest taking out is the 150 hours of coaching. I loved all the even the tongue in cheek stuff. I've had a bad manager. I've been a bad manager because I've done both personally. I think anybody that's in any position of responsibility that has the wherewithal to recognize that is a good target for you. But I'd take out the 150 hours and really hammer
Why do you
home.
say that? Just it's too low at this point?
I think it's just not a compelling selling point for me. Like 150 hours is very, and when you talk about a scale of time, like it's a very small number. Yeah. But otherwise, I think, good stuff.
If I'm a CEO and I promoted an engineer to a boss, to a supervisor, and you tell me this engineer is a bad leader, bad manager, it's like I'm made a mistake. So I would suggest don't talking about bad managers. You can say make them better managers.
So,
And another thing is, instead of training the people, they already be managers, training them be better managers. Do you do the training before the promotion to make them prepared for their promotion? Be a better manager before they actually get the promotion.
Yeah, that's a good question. I tend to get involved after they've been in the role for a little bit. That's when coaching is more effective because they've made some mistakes. They can bring real challenges and problems to the coaching sessions that we can work through. Anytime I've coached someone too soon, it's been like, okay, this could have just been training. So what I'm working on there is just having some online resources that people can gain some knowledge for themselves, and then come to coaching later once they've messed up and recognize that they're now making some bad decisions as a boss.
Yeah, my point is instead of identify current bad managers, you can extend your target market to more people for the future promotions.
Yeah, and I really do want to be focusing on that. Get coaching first for the people you intend to promote into the senior leadership roles, the people who are the future of your business. Like this is an investment. This isn't remedial coaching for those people who are making mistakes or that will soon be out of the company.
Bill, and then I've got.
Yeah, you know, as an enhancement, you know, you're really focusing on engineers. And, you know, what I'd like to know is, so what specific things do engineers that get promoted, what are the top 3 things that they really mess up or don't understand? You know, maybe it's, they think people are machines, you know, and.
That's it, yeah, yes.
Yeah, so, but no, that would just add a little bit more, oh, that's what you're working on, these types of things, you know, that are particular to engineers, right? Because you really are targeting your thing towards engineers. We could have another discussion about, is that the right thing? But
when I've got the top
Yeah,
things,
yeah.
I mean, they all are the rescuer, right? If there's a mistake, they'll just step in and take over the whole project and try to do it themselves. Or they avoid those critical conversations. They avoid giving feedback. They avoid the conflict.
You kind of touched on it. I like your point. Sorry.
There are people with their hands up. Chris Charles, and then I think we're done. Sorry, you're gonna have to take.
Just one quick one. I don't think I saw it in the presentation or heard you mention it, so I'm just gonna say it. I think you should hit on BS in mechanical engineering, but masters in psychology.
Okay. Yeah.
I think you should hit your credentials.
So small.
It was.
I saw it right as he clicked it and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that he had, oh, okay, there's the human side of the engineer.
Yeah.
That's the part of the story.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe you had this, but you didn't have it on there. I'm curious why the group component was the highest tier. In some ways, I feel like that could be like a lower tier where it's like less of your time and like solo people from different places getting pulled into like a group learning experience that like makes your life easier, and maybe like kind of hearing from different people helps them.
Yeah. That may be a future offering, but this one in particular, why it's higher is it is still one-on-one coaching for each of them. So imagine you have a team of 4 directors. They each get one-on-one coaching and group coaching.
Oh yeah, no, I was just saying like you could have maybe a lower offering that's only group and maybe like a one-on-one consult at the end
As like a
that
leverage to
upsells
your
them
time.
into your one-on-one coaching after.
Good point.
Yeah.
Cool.
There
I like
was
that
one,
idea.
there was one slide in here, and I'm guessing based on the feedback that you'll probably revamp this presentation. There was one slide in here that I was really confused. It was one about the clear path. And I was like, there's not a clear path for an engineer to become the leader, or there's not when an engineer is the leader, they don't create a clear path for the people below them. Like that, I wasn't quite that one right there.
Yeah.
That I didn't know what angle we were coming at.
Yeah, and this may not be necessary.
And that's why I said, like, this slide will probably go away based on the
Yeah.
feedback that you got, but in case you leave it in there, it's not clear.
Cool. Thanks.
It's unclear. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, who has a win? Who has a resource that we need to know about, or who needs help?
Throw my hand up. So I think it was just 2 weeks ago, maybe 3, Kiva came in here and was talking to everybody. And so one of the things that I'm trying to do is keep my hands very tight around the business. As I've kind of learned through other experiences where I was actually talking and working with ownership groups, it's very hard to sometimes get ownership groups moving and actually investing in the business. So I'm trying to keep the business within me and my co-founders' hands. So with that intention, we actually went through Kiva and we just went live today. So for $25, you're basically paying for somebody's financial acumen. So we're going to be putting together savings challenges on the back end for them to actually become intentional with their money. And then on top of that, our security is top notch. So we're actually going through wire fraud and all this before they're even let onto the platform. That's to avoid the crypto bros and everybody that does the pump and dump type schemes. Keep those guys out of there so they're not talking to you. Keep them over in TikTok world. So people will help you out. Anyways, so check us out. We're looking for about $11,000. That'll take about 600 people through financial education, get them trained up. And it is a loan, so we'll be paying it back. Help us supercharge and keep my hands around the business.
All right. Was that a win or a request for help? It sort of
Well,
seems
it's
like-
both.
I know,
It's both. I'm
I
like,
just
they
laughed.
said, sure, let's do it. Man, help money.
Ben,
Oh, I think.
I thought you raised your hand
I did.
before you clapped.
I got distracted. I'm all disheveled from when you like cut me off and talking before. I was scared to say anything.
You did raise your hand this
I
time.
did raise it. A buddy and I, a good friend of mine from college, and I have been kicking around ideas for a long time. And yesterday we actually met, and we're in the process of starting a venture. So I'll be hopefully getting on presenting here and potentially asking for help in the near future. But we are trying to solve the problem of helping adults find and maintain their friendships. So it's a project coming soon.
To do a city near you.
Facebook for old people.
No.
Isn't
Facebook
Facebook
is
for old
F-
people?
F Facebook.
Yeah. I got a 30-minute conversation about it. It's actually kind of cool. Yeah, idea. I like it.
That sounds awesome.
Who else has a win resource?
I have a win. I did I did do an economic update, but after that, I did a networking event at the Weld Food Bank. We had a couple dozen people show up for that, packed 3,000 pounds plus of food. It's pretty amazing. So people actually came not for the free beer, but to do good. Quite pleased with that. And then I have an ask, if I may. I would love topics to present about. So like I do economic updates, I do financial independence. What else would you guys be interested in knowing about? What would be actual interest? I mean,
Are you wanting to tell him or you have?
I could win. So a couple of weeks ago, some of you were here when Ken Williams,
Yeah, the plastic.
he's a packaging guy. Remember, he
Yeah.
did the pitch, and I think the pitch went okay here. People had a tough time figuring out what he's selling, right? Was he selling machines? Was he selling what? So I've been working with him, and we've got much better pitch deck now. So that's win number one. You know, so we think that, you know, that we'll work with him, Sage, in the future. But the two of us went and met with Allison Seebeck down at the warehouse in Loveland. And because what he really needs to do is manufacture these things, right? So we think there's some collaboration thing going on. So I think he's moving in the right direction. So that's a good win, I think.
Yay. I want that
He
guy
also
to
needs
see.
some money, right? He
Yeah,
was asking for
let's
$2
go.
million,
Don't we
you know.
I had 25 bucks to give.
He
him
needs a
back.
better story to get $2 million out
Yeah.
of somebody.
yeah.
Anybody else have a win, a resource, need help?
So I think a few weeks ago I mentioned it, a win. But someone, I put my profile in Maine, right, to help Beth and Peter and try out the platform. And then someone reached out who's an engineer turned attorney. And I thought we were just gonna have a conversation over coffee, like get to know each other, like a quick 15-minute chat. Yeah, it'd be great to meet. Here's my Calendly, let's chat. I almost showed up to the meeting in a beanie because I was like, well, I'm kind of tired, disheveled. But I didn't comb my hair a little bit. And then like 10 minutes in, I realized, oh, he's wanting to hire me to coach him personally. So had to turn that conversation into that pretty quick. And yeah, so that was exciting. That just reached out, wanted to coach.
So Maine worked.
Main work.
Yeah.
Thanks, Peter. Resource, not entrepreneurial related. Want to hear it? Who has baseboard heaters? No one?
Our farmers.
Okay. Am I the only one with baseboard heaters?
My grandparents' house.
Never mind.
I
won't tell you.
But
It's not relevant to the group.
now I want to know, we have baseboard heat at the farm.
You can get smart thermostats for $1 from the utility. And since if you have baseboard heaters, you need like 8 of them. So I got
$8.
This
$8.
actually, I will tell
That's
my
great.
dad, because
Mhm.
they're not at the farm in the winter, so it would be nice to have that.
efficiencyworks.com. Fort Collins, Loveland, Estes, all that stuff.
All right, well, on that note,
Okay.
have a great week. We'll see you here next week.
Oh, we have spots in
Oh.
December.
We do have spots.
Call Natalie, right, Natalie.
And no meeting
Okay.
for Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Okay, go team.